Yeah.
Well, please feel free to record, and I'm glad to be with you.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking some time with us. Representative Fleischmann, tell us what you're doing in Washington right now and what is the next step in this historic government shutdown?
Well, this historic, unforgivable, wrong, pick the adjective, government shutdown that I have opposed from the beginning has now lasted 41 days. Fortunately, I am back in Washington, D.C., and I have been ordered by our House leadership to remain in D.C. for a vote that will take place tomorrow. Probably tomorrow in the earlier part of the evening. It may go into the later part of the evening because finally the United States Senate voted to reopen the government last night. That is a series actually of two votes. Last night, they voted to open the government, to fully fund the government, to extend it to the January 30th date, but in that package put the agricultural bill, the Milcon VA bill for veterans benefits, and the legislative branch bill. But bottom line, the reason I'm here, I actually spoke to a nuclear conference, the American Nuclear Society, with whom I work very closely in my role as Energy and Water Chair of Appropriations. They had me there to be one of their keynote speakers. So fortunately, I was here, but I was told to stay here.
And I want to specifically talk about the SNAP benefits now. Georgia has their Department of Human Services has given guidance to their SNAP recipients that money could be coming down today. Tennessee has not given any specific guidance that we've seen. I know this is caught up in a back and forth in court. What do you say to those people who we are now 11 days into November and they haven't been able to receive this federal assistance that they depend on to be able to feed their families?
This is an outrage to them, to all the Fed workers, to my staff, everyone who has been affected, because this has been a farce from the beginning. Uh, Look, I will never say anything that is untrue. Chuck Schumer, from the inception, caused this Democratic shutdown. It was never about health care. It was always about appropriations. My point is, you never shut the federal government down. So, to these poor women, infants, and children, to the SNAP recipients, to the federal workers, to my staff, to everyone who was affected by 41 days of a shutdown, it's outrageous. It's wrong. It's a failure of American government. Candidly, I think Chuck Schumer should be removed by the Democrats in the Senate as their leader. And the reality is, the Democrats, with their farce, got nothing for it. They didn't get what they said they wanted because they knew from the beginning it was not about health care. It was about Chuck Schumer. It was about a Democratic shutdown. It's wrong. I'm not going to forget it. So, to these poor SNAP benefits, the government's not open yet. I will vote to reopen the government tomorrow, as I did September the 19th. I've always voted to keep the federal government open. You can have differences on either side. You work it out while the government is open. You don't punish these poor people who get SNAP benefits, or women, infants, and children, or again, our air traffic controllers, many of whom have been working without pay, or TSA people. It's an outrage. In 15 years, I have never been more angry, disgusted, and upset at a farce, at an outright lie from the beginning that was done for political purposes by the Democrats, and specifically by Senate Democrats and Chuck Schumer.
I have two follow-ups to that. One is
So,
going to be about healthcare in a moment, but first
yes.
about SNAP. If you feel so strongly about the SNAP beneficiaries being able to receive those benefits, should President Trump have just paid them out and let the negotiations keep going so that those people had the money while the government was still shut down? Why would he keep fighting it in court, do you think?
Well, here's the situation, because he didn't have access to full funding. When he was ordered by a federal court to do that, the federal judge who made that ruling, and I think that was a good ruling. We want people to receive SNAP benefits. We want people to receive women, infant, and children benefits all of the federal benefits. The problem was with the government shutdown, there was not enough money in the emergency fund to pay all the SNAP benefits. So, what you certainly don't want to do when you're shorting poor people, you sure don't want to pick one group over the other, one state over the other. They're all poor people. They all deserve their SNAP benefits. They all deserve our help. You just shouldn't be able to pick one over the other. He didn't have enough money to do that, and he couldn't move money around. Remember, this was not a failure of President Trump or the executive branch. This is a failure of the legislative branch, of which I'm a part. But I voted to keep the government open. The House did its job. Only one Democrat joined us. And by the way, that poor fella is retiring. I give him credit. Three Democrats in the Senate all along voted to keep it open. Give them credit. They're great Americans. We may disagree with them, but they kept the government open. The executive branch in any government shutdown is put in a horrible position because they have to rob from Peter to pay Paul. So give President Trump the best grade he can after we gave him a terrible situation, after we gave the American people a terrible situation. And this is all on Chuck Schumer. His political career is collapsing now. Why? Because Democrats are saying, hey, what did we get for this? It was an out and out lie. It was a farce. But he can commit all the farces he wants. When he commits a farce that hurts poor people in America, that hurts hardworking people in America, that hurts our economy, he needs to go.
And about healthcare, why not just have the conversation with Democrats at the same time, get that ironed out, and maybe this could have been shorter? Why couldn't that have been part of the process? And if not, what happens next with the healthcare talk?
You're absolutely right. Again, this was part of Chuck Schumer's farce. There were negotiations going on. The healthcare subsidies are not even part of the appropriation process. The appropriation process, and that's what I do for Tennessee. I'm the only appropriator in the House of 9 members. This is what I do, and I'm a chairman. It's the job is to keep the government open, to pass the 12 appropriation bills, to get the federal government a budget for the year. And by the way, that has been passed now to January 30th. We could have had the American people a budget by November 20th. But no, thanks to Chuck Schumer, he led the Democrats down a bad path in the Senate. Now that's going to be September 30th. We were having conversations. The Speaker of the House went to Hakeem Jeffries and said, even though it's an extraneous issue on Obamacare subsidies, we'll talk to you about it. We were always willing to talk about it. I've been talking to folks about it for months, but it's outside the appropriation process. That's why it was a blatant lie, a farce by Chuck Schumer to try to do that. The healthcare subsidies should be discussed, should be debated, along with a lot of issues. We've got a farm bill out there. We've got so many other issues that are out there that are outside of the appropriation process that we should and could be talking about. But you talk about it while we're open. The Democratic minority leader said something a couple of weeks ago, said, this is leverage. This is leverage. We're using this as leverage. You never leverage poor people. You never leverage the American people. You never lie to do that. And she said, people will be hurt. Well, people were hurt. And I'm here to tell you this. We won't recover from this government shutdown once the government gets turned on. It is going to take months to get fully back to where we were. Now, SNAP benefits are going to be paid. Our TSA people, our air traffic controllers, they're going to be paid. My staff will be paid. But the reality is people are going to hurt for a long time because of this. And it was based on an out and out lie. I have never given an hour-long speech on the House before. I'm going to reserve an hour to stand on the truth, to tell the American people what exactly happened. Not as a Republican, not as a just as a member of the House, but as a concerned citizen. We can never let, and give President Trump credit the other day, he said, we can never let this happen in this country again. We've got to come up with a legislative fix to make sure we never shut the government down again. It just
What
hurts
is
people.
what is a legislative fix to that, in your opinion?
Excellent question. A bipartisan bill, Republicans and Democrats agreeing that in the event that October 1st comes on any year and we do not have a federal budget, automatically a continuing resolution kicks in for the short term until we get to a budget. You keep the government open, you keep it clean, and you keep negotiating, but you never shut it down and hurt the American people again.
So if that vote happens tomorrow and it everyone votes to reopen it, or a majority votes to reopen it, what does the timeline look like? Did the SNAP benefits go out right away? What else kind of happens quickly?
Some benefits will go out immediately. Once again, once we cast that vote, and I hope and pray it will pass. I have been calling members all day to make sure that they vote for it. Remember, I always vote to keep the government open. I did in September. I will be a yes vote so our constituents know, but I'm calling other members to make sure we get them to yes. I sincerely hope that Democrats join us in the House. Remember, in the first vote, only one voted with us, but they knew it was going to pass, and I understood that. So sometimes they did that. In the Senate, it was a completely different situation. The fault really lay with Chuck Schumer and the Democrats in the Senate. But tomorrow, let's hope we get enough votes to pass. Some funds will be released immediately. I'm sure SNAP benefits will be absolutely a priority. Our air traffic controllers, many of whom have been working without pay, showing up, our TSA workers, they will be paid. My staff has been told probably it'll take about a week to get their pay. So it'll take a while. The real damage will be a lot of these federal contracts that the pipeline was cut off. Those dollars may take 45 to 60 days or longer to get back in. So then you have other workers who may not necessarily be federal workers, but would be federal contract workers working on either reduced status and the like. That's going to take some time to resolve. So the damage has been done. And at the beginning, I begged, I pleaded with the Democrats in the Senate and in the House to always keep the government open. And I said the harm that would be caused. And you hit it on the head. It hurt poor people, it hurt hardworking people, and this should never happen in the United States of America. And it's a failure of the legislative branch, specifically in this case, the Democrats in the United States Senate. Not a failure of the executive branch, and it's not a failure of the judiciary. You mentioned that the judges made certain decisions. In fairness to the judges, they get faced with this, but they don't know what the funding profiles look like.
Okay, sir, thanks for that information. Anything else you want to say as you get ready for that vote tomorrow?
Let's hope and pray that we get this passed tomorrow. It's not a guarantee, but it is looking very good because the Senate has left town. They have left, and understandably, they've been in, they were in this last weekend and the like. And I do want to say thank you to those senators who finally stepped up, those Democratic senators who finally stepped up to break the filibuster. We've preserved the filibuster, which I think is very important in the United States Senate. I have always believed in the filibuster. When we were in the minority, I believed in the filibuster, and now we're in the majority. I still believe in the filibuster. But these people stepped up and did the patriotic thing. They put patriotism before party and voted to reopen the government. They should be commended for that.
Okay, Representative Fleischmann, thanks so much for your time today.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you and happy Veterans Day.
You as well. Thank you.